Om Namo Vasudevaya Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Jayam Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Virye Naishtaprayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavatasya Bhagavati Uttam Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki. So continuing with the discussion on Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 12, today we're starting a chapter, Chapter 8, Markandeya's Prayers to Nar Narayan Rishi. Text 1 onwards. Shri Shaunak Uvacha, Tut Jiva Chiram Sadhu, Vadano Vadatam Vara, Tamasya Pare Brahmatam, Drinam Svam Para Darshana. Shri Shaunak said, O Suta, may you live a long life. O saintly one, best of speakers, please continue speaking to us. Indeed, only you can show men the path out of the ignorance in which they are wandering. According to Srila Jiva Goswami, the sages saw that Sud Goswami was about to end his narration of Srimad Bhagavatam, and thus they urged him to first tell the story of Markandeya Rishi. Ahushirayusham Rishim Mrikandutanayam Jana Ya Kalpante hi Hirviritu Yen Grastam Idam Jagat Sava Asmat Kulotpanna Kalpe Asmin Bhargav Rishabha Nevadhunapi Bhutanam Samplava Kopi Jayate Eka Evaranave Brahmyan Dadarsh Purusham Kiru Vatapatra Pute Lokam Shayanam Tvekam Adbhutam Eshna Sanchayo Bhuyan Sutu Kotuhalam Yatha Tam Nashchindi Mahayogin Praneshvapi Sammataha. Authorities say that Markandeya Rishi, the son of Mrikandu, was an exceptionally long-lived sage who was the only survivor at the end of Brahma's day, when the entire universe was merged in the flood of annihilation. But this same Markandeya Rishi, the foremost descendant of Bhrigu, took birth in my own family during the current day of Brahma. And we have not yet seen any total annihilation in this day of Brahma. Also, it is well known that Markandeya, while wandering helplessly in the great ocean of annihilation, saw in those fearful waters a wonderful personality, an infant boy lying alone within the fold of a banyan leaf. O Suta, I am most bewildered and curious about this great sage Markandeya Rishi. O great yogi, you are universally accepted as authority on all the Puranas. Therefore, kindly dispel my confusion. Lord Brahma's day, consisting of his 12 hours, lasts 4,320,000,000 years. Wow, that's according to human calculations. And his night is of the same duration. Apparently, Markandeya lived throughout one such day and night, and in the following day of Brahma continued living as the same Markandeya. It seems that when annihilation occurred during Brahma's night, the sage wandered throughout the fearful waters of destruction and saw within those waters an extraordinary personality lying on a banyan leaf. All of these mysteries concerning Markandeya will be clarified by Suta Goswami at the request of the great sages. So, very, very mystic personality, Markandeya Rishi. Sutu Vacha Prashnastvaya Maharshayam Krito Loka Brahmapaha Narayana Katha Yatra Gita Kalimalapaha. Sud Goswami said, O great Sid Shonak, your very question will help remove everyone's illusion, for it leads to the topics of Lord Narayan, which cleanse away the contamination of this Kali age. Prapta Dvijati Sanskaru Markandeya Pituhu Krimat Chandasya Dhitya Dharmena Tapa Swadhyaya Samyuta Brihad Vrata Dhara Shanto Jatilo Valkalambaraha Bibrat Kamandalum Dandam Upavitam Samekalam, Krishnajinam Saksha Sutram, Pushancha Neyamardhaye, Agne Arka Guru Vipratmasva, Archayan Sandhayor Harim, Sayam Prata Sagurave, Bhaksham Ahritya Vagyataha, Ubuje Guru Anugyataha Sakrinno Chedu Poshita. Evam tapa swadhyayo paro varshanam ayutayutam aradhayan rishikesham jigge mrityum sudurjayam. So Sud Goswami is saying, after being purified by his father's performance of the prescribed rituals leading to Markandeya's Brahminical initiation, Markandeya studied the Vedic hymns and strictly observed the regulative principles, became advanced in austerity and Vedic knowledge, and remained a lifelong celibate. Appearing most peaceful with his matted hair and his clothing made of bark, he furthered his spiritual progress by carrying the mendicant's water pot, staff, sacred thread, brahmachari belt, black deerskin, lotus seeds, prayer beads, and bundles of kusha grass. At the sacred junctures of the day, he regularly worshipped the Supreme Personality of Godhead in 5 forms: the sacrificial fire, the sun, his spiritual master, the Brahmanans, and the super soul within his heart. Morning and evening, he would go out begging, and upon returning, he would present all the food he had collected to his spiritual master. Only when his spiritual master invited him would he silently take his one meal of the day, otherwise he would fast. Thus devoted to austerity and Vedic study, Markandeya Rishi worshipped the Supreme Master of the senses, the personality of Godhead, for countless millions of years, and in this way he conquered unconquerable death. So he did like this for countless millions of years. Wow. Brahma Bhrigur Bhavo Daksho Brahma Putrascha Ye Apare Nrideva Pitri Bhutani Tena Sannati Vismita. Lord Brahma, Bhrigu Muni, Lord Shiva, Prajapati Daksha, the great sons of Brahma and many others among the human beings, demigods, forefathers, and ghostly spirits, all were astonished by the achievement of Markandeya Rishi. Itham brihad vratadharas tapaswadhyaya samyama tadhyavadhokshajam yogi dhvasta kleshantaratmana. In this way, the devotional mystic Markandeya maintained rigid celibacy through penance, study of the Vedas, and self-discipline. With his mind thus free of all disturbances, he turned it inward and meditated on the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who lies beyond the material senses. So although Supreme Personality of Godhead, his name is Adhokshaja. Adhokshaja means he lies beyond the material senses, but because Markandeya's his mind was free of all disturbances, following rigid celibacy, study of Vedas, self-discipline, so he could go inside and meditate on the Supreme Lord, because he was completely purified. Tasyavam yunjataschittam mahayogena yogina vyatiyaya mahan kalo manvantarash datmakaha. While the mystic sage thus concentrated his mind by powerful yoga practice, the tremendous period of 6 lifetimes of Manu passed by. Can we imagine? When he concentrated his mind by powerful yoga practice, the tremendous period of 6 lifetimes of Manu. So 6 Manus. One Manu lives for 71 Chatur Yugas, and 6 such just Manus passed by. Etat Purandaro Gyatva Saptam Measmin Kilantare Tapo Vishankito Brahman Arebhe Tad Vighatanam. O Brahman, during the 7th reign of Manu, the current age, which is Vavasvat Manu, Lord Indra, so his name is given as Purandar, came to know of Markandeya's austerity and became fearful of his growing mystic potency. Thus he tried to impede the sage's penance. So Indra does these things. Gandharvapsarasah kamam vasantamalayal nilo munye preshya masa rajas tokamado tatha. To ruin the sage's spiritual practice, Lord Indra sent Cupid, beautiful celestial singers, dancing girls, a season of spring, and the sandalwood-scented breeze from the Malay hills, along with greed and intoxication personified. Teve tadashramam jagmur himadre parshottare pushpabhadra nadi yatra chitrakya chashila vibhu. O most powerful Shonak, they went to Markandeya's hermitage on the northern side of the Himalaya mountains, where the Pushpabhadra river passes by the famous peak Chitra. Tadashram padam punyam punya drumalatanchitam punya dvijakula kririnam punya mal jalashayam mat brahmar sangeetam mat kokil kujitam mat barhe natatopam mat dvijakula kulam vayu pravishta adaya him nirchar shikaram sumno bhi parishvakto vava uttam bhayan smaram. Groves of pious trees decorated the holy ashram of Markandeya Rishi, and many saintly Brahmins lived there, enjoying the abundant, pure, sacred ponds. The ashram resounded with the buzzing of intoxicated bees and the cooing of excited cuckoos, while jubilant peacocks danced about. Indeed, many families of maddened birds crowded that hermitage. The springtime breeze sent by Lord Indra entered there, carrying cooling drops of spray from nearby waterfalls. Fragrant from the embrace of forest flowers, that breeze entered the hermitage and began evoking the lusty spirit of Cupid. Udyat Chandra Nishavaktra Pravalastab Kalibhi Gopadruma Lata Jales Tatrasit Kusumakara. Springtime then appeared in Markandeya's ashram. Indeed, the evening sky, glowing with the light of the rising moon, became the very face of spring, and sprouts and fresh blossoms virtually covered the multitude of trees and creepers. And we can only imagine if, first of all, the ashram was very pure, and then Indra is trying his best. So how beautiful that scene must be over there. Anviya mano gandharva geeta vaditra yuthaka adrishya tata chapeshu swastri yuthapati smraha. Cupid, the master of many heavenly women, then came there holding his bow and arrows. He was followed by groups of Gandharvas playing musical instruments and singing. Hutvaganim samupasinam dadrushu shakra kinkara nilitaksham duradharsham murtim antam ivanalam. These servants of Indra found the sage sitting in meditation, having just offered his prescribed oblations into the sacrificial fire. His eyes closed in trance, he seemed invincible, like fire personified. Nandritustasya purataha striyavatho gayaka jagu ridanga veena panavair vadyam chakrur manoramam. The women danced before the sage, and the celestial singers danced to the charming accompaniment of drums, cymbals, and veenas. Skandadeyastram swadhanushi kama panchamukham tata madhura mano rajasoka indra bhritya vyakampyam. While the son of passion, greed personified spring, and the other servants of Indra all tried to agitate Markandeya's mind, Cupid drew his 5-headed arrow and fixed it upon his bow. Kridantaya punjikarasthalaya kanduka stan gaurava resham udvigna madhyaya kesha visran sit asrajaha itastato brahmad drishtesha chalantaya anukandukam vayurajahara tatvasa suksham trujit mekhalam. The Apsara Punjikasthali made a show of playing with a number of toy balls. Her waist seemed weighed down her heavy breast, and the wreath of flowers in her hair became disheveled. As she ran about after the balls, glancing here and there, the belt of a thin garment loosened, and suddenly the wind blew her clothes away. All created by Indra. विससर्ज तदा बाणं मत्वा तं स्वजितं स्मरः सर्वं तत्राभवन्मोघम् अनीशस्य यथोद्यम. Cupid, thinking he had conquered the sage, then shot his arrow. But all these attempts to seduce Markandeya proved futile, just like the useless endeavors of an atheist. So, could not do anything. Ta itham apkurvanto munestejasa mune dayamana nevavritu prabodhyahim ivarpaka. O learned Shaunak, while Cupid and his followers tried to harm the sage, they felt themselves being burned alive by his potency. Thus they stopped the mischief, just like children who had aroused a sleeping snake. Iti indranu charara brahman dharshitopi mahamuni yanna gadam gadahamo bhavam na chitram mahatsuhi. O Brahman, the followers of Lord Indra had impudently attacked the saintly Markandeya, yet he did not succumb to any influence of falsehood. For great souls, such tolerance is not at all surprising. Drishtva nistejasam kamam saganam bhagavan swara shrutvanu brahmarshe vismayam samagat param. The mighty King Indra was most astonished when he heard of the mystic prowess of the exalted sage Markandeya and saw how Cupid and his associates had become powerless in his presence. Tasyavam yunjataschittam tapasvadhyaya samyama anugrahaya viraksina nara narayano harihi. Desiring to bestow his mercy upon the saintly Markandeya, who had perfectly fixed his mind in self-realization through penance, Vedic study, and observance of regulative principles, the Supreme Personality of Godhead personally appeared before the sage in the forms of Nar and Narayan. To Shukla Krishna Navakanja Lochano Chaturbhujo Rorava Valka Lambaro Pavitra Pani Upavita Kam Trivrit Kamandalum Dandam Rajum Chavarnavam Padmakshamalu Nam Ut Jantu Marjanam Vedam Cha Sakshattav Eva Rupino Tapattad Dvar Pishangarochisha Pranshu Dadhano Vibudharsha Bharchito. One of them was a whitish complexion, means of the Nar Narayan, the other blackish, and they both had 4 arms. Their eyes resembled the petals of blooming lotuses, and they wore garments of black deerskin and bark, along with the 3-stranded sacred thread. In their hands, which were most purifying, they carried the mendicant's water pot, straight bamboo staff, and the lotus seed prayer beads, as well as the all-purifying Vedas in the symbolic form of bundles of darba grass. Their bearing was tall, and the yellow effulgence, the color of radiant lightning, appearing as austerity personified. They were being worshipped by the foremost demigods. Devai Bhagavato Rupe Naranarayana Vrishi Drishtothaya Dare Nochar Nana Mangena Dandavat. These 2 sages, Nar Narayan, were the direct personal forms of the Supreme Lord. When Markandeya Rishi saw them, he immediately stood up and then, with great respect, offered them obeisances by falling down flat on the ground like a stick. So I'll just go to the translations from all the verses from. The ecstasy of seeing them completely satisfied Markandeya's body, mind, and senses, and caused the hairs on his body to stand on end and his eyes to fill with tears. Overwhelmed, Markandeya found it difficult to look at them. Standing with his hands folded in supplication and his head bowed in humility, Markandeya felt such eagerness that he imagined he was embracing the 2 lords. In a voice choked with ecstasy, he repeatedly said, I offer you my humble obeisances. He gave them sitting places and washed their feet, and then he worshipped them with presentations of arghya, sandalwood pulp, fragrant oils, incense, and flower garlands. Markandeya Rishi once again bowed down at the lotus feet of those two most worshipable sages who were sitting at ease, ready to bestow all mercy upon him. He then addressed them as follows. Shri Markandeya said, O Almighty Lord, how can I possibly describe you? You awaken the vital air, which then impels the mind, senses, and power of speech to act. This is true for all ordinary conditioned souls and even for great demigods like Brahma and Shiva. So it is certainly true for me. Nevertheless, you become the intimate friend of those who worship you. O Supreme Personality of Godhead, these two personal forms of yours have appeared in order to bestow the ultimate benefit for the three worlds, the cessation of material misery and the conquest of death. My Lord, although you create this universe and then assume many transcendental forms to protect it, you also swallow it up, just like a spider who spins and later withdraws its web. So first is always glorification of the Lord. Because you are the protector and the supreme controller of all beings and non-moving beings, anyone who takes shelter of your lotus feet can never be touched by the contamination of material work, material qualities, or time. Great sages who have assimilated the essential meanings of the Vedas offer their prayers to you. To gain your association, they bow down to you at every opportunity and constantly worship you, meditate upon you. My dear Lord, even Lord Brahma, who enjoys his exalted position for the entire duration of the universe, fears the passage of time. Then what to speak of those whom Brahma creates, the conditioned souls? They encounter fearful dangers at every step of their lives. I do not know of any relief from this fear except shelter at your lotus feet, which are the very form of liberation. Therefore, I worship your lotus feet, having renounced my identification with the material body and everything else that covers my true self. These useless, insubstantial, and temporary coverings are merely presumed to be separate from you, whose intelligence encompasses all truth. By attaining you, the Supreme Lord and the Master of the soul, one attains everything desirable. So by one who falsely identifies himself as a material body or mind automatically feels entitled to exploit the material world. But when we realize our eternal spiritual nature and Lord Krishna's supreme proprietorship over all that be, we renounce our false enjoying propensity by the strength of spiritual knowledge. So this was the first instruction of Gita. Krishna says, you're not this body. O my Lord, O supreme friend of the conditioned souls, although for the creation, maintenance, and annihilation of this world, you accept the modes of goodness, passion, and ignorance, which constitute your illusory potency. You specifically employ the mode of goodness to liberate the conditioned souls. The other two modes simply bring them suffering, illusion, and fear. Yes, that's what passion and ignorance does. So somehow or other, we have to come to the level of goodness and remain at the level of goodness. O Lord, because fearlessness, spiritual happiness, and the kingdom of God are all achieved through the mode of pure goodness, your devotees consider this mode, but never passion and ignorance, to be a direct manifestation of you, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Intelligent persons thus worship your beloved transcendental form, composed of pure goodness, along with spiritual forms of your pure devotees. So the devotees just want to worship the Supreme Lord. They don't even want to worship the demigods who are made of who have material forms. I offer my humble obeisances to him, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He is the all-pervading and all-inclusive form of the universe, as well as the spiritual master. I bow down to Lord Narayan, the supremely worshipable deity appearing as a sage, and also to saintly Nara, the best of human beings, who is fixed in perfect goodness, fully in control of his speech and the propagator of the Vedic literatures. A materialist, his intelligence perverted by the action of his deceptive senses, cannot recognize you at all. Although you are always present within his own senses and heart, and also among the objects of his perception, yet even though one's understanding has been covered by your illusory potency, if one obtains Vedic knowledge from you, the supreme spiritual master of all, he can directly understand you. Otherwise, it's not possible to understand Krishna. My dear Lord, the Vedic literatures alone reveal confidential knowledge of your supreme personality, and thus even such great scholars as Lord Brahma himself are bewildered in their attempts to understand you through empirical methods. Each philosopher understands you according to his particular speculative conclusions. I worship that supreme person, knowledge of whom is hidden by the bodily designations covering the conditioned soul's spiritual identity. Even Lord Brahma, great demigod like Brahma, bewildered in his speculative attempts to understand the supreme personality of Godhead. So, what to speak of anybody and everybody of some scholarly attitude in this world, some scholarly qualities they have, some knowledge they have, and they think they can understand the Lord. Not possible. Markandeya Rishi himself is saying it's not possible. So the highest knowledge is Krishna, the supreme personality of Godhead, and one can understand him only by fully surrendering to him and serving him with love. So that way only one can understand, and one understands because when the Lord is pleased, he gives by his mercy, he gives a knowledge by which we can understand him to the extent he wants us to understand him. Very difficult. Even Markandeya, even Brahmaji cannot understand him. Okay, so thus ends the purpose of 12th canto 8th chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled Markandeya's Prayers to Nar Narayan Rishi. So we'll stop here. Tomorrow we'll start the 9th chapter. See anybody has any questions or comments.
हरे कृष्ण प्रभु जी।
Hare Krishna.
प्रभु जी, ये नर नारायण ऋषि ऋषि क्यों बोला क्या? तो नारायण इज नारायण।
Narayan to hai, but
Why
they
Rishi
always
double?
doing tapasya. They always doing tapasya in Badrika Ashram for the benefit of the whole humanity. So they are called Narayan Rishi. They always call Narayan Rishi. Yeah, he is Narayan himself, but he is taken the form of a Rishi and doing tapasya.
Okay. Okay. And another thing, Prabhuji, it makes there's another statement has come for the Cupid has a four heads or 3 heads. I don't know. Kya padha tha abhi? Where was
4
it?
hands.
4
Both
heads.
of them had 4 hands.
Okay. But this we studied earlier, this 4 heads. No, the first time.
4 heads or 4 hands?
4 hands.
Sorry.
It's written 4 heads, Prabhuji. 5 heads. This is shloka number 25.
Okay, let me go. 25. Well, the son of passion. Oh, that's his arrow. Cupid's arrow. So Cupid or Kamdev, when he shoots his five-headed arrow.
Hmm.
What is it? When we have these five working senses, no? They have to be enamored. So, touch sensation is there, and the hearing, and the smell, and the beautiful sight, and so eyes, ears, nose, touch, and another one.
Taste.
Eyes, nose, and mouth. Taste.
Mouth. Taste.
So he sends. This is how he attracts people. Not just the lust that we know of. He attracts with all these five things. Sometimes it is a five-headed arrow. Sometimes it's a five arrows, separate arrows.
Okay. This five numbers represents five senses.
Five senses. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Thank
he has to try all his best to bewilder us.
Hmm.
ठीक है?
Okay. Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare
Okay, Mother. Thank you. Hare Krishna. Jai Shri Prabhupada.
Jai Shri
Hare
Prabhupada.